lava bang. All them having cars now, whichever get up. Light up my scarf with a sweet one bliss. Someone flips me a bag it up. So, it's another one. It's another one, yeah. It's a full strong, yeah. Oh, it's another one. It's another one, yeah.
What's going on, people? Welcome back to the Stay Weighed-In show presented to you by iBoxingHub. Today is the first one of the year, and I'm pleased to announce we are with the voice of DAZN Boxing, somebody I grew up watching and listening to when it comes to the WWE, but now transitioning also into the world of boxing. Todd Grisham. Todd, how are you?
Abbas, thanks for having me on. I'm doing great down here in beautiful Miami. I'm sure the weather is a little bit better here than it is in Great Britain.
It definitely is. We've got a lot of snow coming on here, so it's the traditional chilly northern weather, you could say. We are going to talk about 2024, looking ahead to 2025. But before we do that, here's a quick little video from our sponsor. There we go, guys. iBoxingHub 24. Get yourself 40% off from D-Rock Clothing. Todd, got to start off by saying Happy New Year to you as well.
Happy New Year to you as well, Abbas.
How was the Christmas period? Was it fun just to sit back and reflect over 2024?
Yeah, well, I've got 3 daughters, so you don't get to sit around and reflect much. You're just like dealing with presents and gifts and returns and gift cards and but it's a lot of fun being a dad, and I enjoy it. And it's kind of the lull in the season, as it seems to be almost every year, that after Christmas, early January, not really many events planned. So I'm having a good time just decompressing from 2024.
I will say this. I think boxing was a big gift for all of us fans this year. I think this was one of the years where I looked at and I thought it gave us everything that we wanted, from undisputed fights to 5 versus 5 fights, to new superstars in the world of boxing. So I want to just reflect back on 2024. And as I said to you before, the first time I spoke to you was actually at a Misfits event, roughly around this time last year. And you mentioned that you were super excited for the February fight that got rescheduled to May, which was Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. I want to ask you, what was your highlight of 2024 for you?
It had to be calling the first undisputed heavyweight fight in a quarter century. I mean, some of the young viewers watching right now don't appreciate the struggle. Now all of a sudden with Turkey Al Sheikh in, Riyadh season, we're getting all the big fights. Boom, 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 boom. Soon people are going to be like, what did you guys used to complain about? You'd wait years and years for a certain fight to happen. We all know about Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. I mean, that fight happened 5 or 6 years too late. And we thought we'd never see Usyk versus Fury, but we got it. We got it twice, and that fight lived up to the hype. The first one certainly did. Usyk round 9, Fury beating pillar to post, and then Fury coming back as he always seems to do. It was an incredible highlight and one of the biggest moments of my career for sure.
Did you prefer the first fight over the second?
Oh yeah,
I would say that I was in that camp. I preferred fight number 1 over fight number 2, but I will say this: I thought Tyson Fury fought a more disciplined fight when it came to fight number 2 in this time round.
Yeah, you look back, you think outside of round 9, I thought Fury was better in the first fight. So maybe he needed to clown around. Remember, he was grabbing the ropes and doing this funny stuff and sticking his tongue out. For the second fight, he was much more serious and much more locked in. I'm not sure that's the best Fury. I think he's a little better when he's loose and having fun in there. Maybe I'm wrong, but outside of round 9, again, in the first fight, he was really, really good, and I think he probably would have won that fight. The second fight, he was dialed in, and Usyk just outboxed him and outworked him and was much more accurate and won the fight, deservedly so, by the same scores, I believe, on all 3 judges' scorecards.
That was it. I want to ask you something, because you mentioned that, and it's funny because me and you, we both got the same viewpoint in the sense of, I think new boxing fans now are going to be spoiled because of His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh and Riyadh season. You've been to Saudi Arabia. Just talk to me about 2024 in terms of visiting Saudi Arabia, seeing the events and what that is like, and also what you think we can see going forward in 2025?
The amazing thing about Saudi Arabia, I think I've been there 7 times now. Every time I go back, it gets more and more open, the society, less and less conservative, more welcoming, bigger events. They know how, the first event they had there, they never done it before. Now they're dialed in. I mean, I've been there like on a Tuesday and they say, hey, this place right here, we're going to have a huge press conference and weigh in and all that stuff. And there's nothing there. And you're like, there's no way that this can be built in 2 days. And not only is it built in 2 days, it's the biggest, baddest thing you've ever seen. So the work rate there, the amount of stuff they're able to turn around in a short matter of time, and they give it the gravitas that it deserves. That Fury Usyk fight, the first one, the undisputed title. I mean, they brought out all the bells and whistles. And I know a lot of people would prefer Tyson Fury to fight in England, and us in America, we'd love to have him in either New York or Las Vegas. But Saudi Arabia is becoming the it spot, and you can't fault them for it. They're not just paying the fighters money and you come over and have the fight and that's it. It's a whole experience. I mean, they're treating these big cards almost like they would a WrestleMania.
Hey, I was just going to say that it is literally the WrestleMania of boxing when it comes to Riyadh season cards. One we had in the UK was Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois. And I think something you said that was super interesting was the grand spectacle nature of it. It's not just it's a regular weigh-in or it's a regular press conference. It's super grand. And we had that here in the UK as well. I want to ask you about Daniel Dubois because he's had some of his critics in the past, but it seems like he's one of them fighters now that's super resilient. And there's a lot of fighters after losing to Joy Joyce, Alexander Usyk, that would just hide away. But he's come back. He's now a world champion. The way he beat AJ, just talk to me about Daniel Dubois and his resurgence in 2024 for you.
Yeah, what was amazing about that fight, and I got to call that fight, you mentioned what was my highlight. That's, if not number one, it's 1A. You know what I mean? So Tyson Fury and Usyk is my top one, but Dubois, AJ, just because of the drama and how it just came out like a firecracker. Everyone said the way to beat Anthony Joshua is to come out from the opening bell and pressure him and go right after him. And Daniel Dubois said, okay, I'm going to do that. No one believed him, and no one really goes right after Anthony Joshua because you know what he can do. We saw it against Ngannou. But Daniel Dubois did it, and he bullied AJ and beat the tar out of him and dropped him multiple times. And you've got a fighter like that that's willing to stick to the game plan, do what he's told in the corner, and do it without hesitation. And now he's got that killer instinct. That was born when he fought Jarrell Miller, Big Baby. It was the last round. Dubois could have coasted to an easy decision. We've all seen fighters do it, especially in the heavyweight division. Don't risk anything. One punch can change everything. Just coast to the finish line and you're going to win. Daniel Dubois wanted to make a statement that night. He did by stopping Big Baby Miller with just seconds left, and that propelled him into another big fight, which he came out and performed fantastically. He could be the fighter of the year if it weren't for Usyk. He's been fantastic. But Joseph Parker is a whole different beast. I mean, this guy's not going to stand there and slug it out with him. He's going to stick and move and do what he does. And I would not go ahead and check the win column for Dubois against Joseph Parker by any means.
I was going to say, we will definitely talk about that card because for me, I think that's the best boxing card we've ever had. Yeah. There is one more undisputed fight that I want to talk about as well. For me, that was the best technical fight of 2024, which was Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev. We talked about how special it was for the heavyweight division. The light heavyweight division as well, getting its undisputed fight. Can you remember that fight, and what was your thoughts about that particular fight?
It was the battle of two styles. You know what Bivol's going to do. He's become a master of it, and you know what Beterbiev was going to do. And they both, I thought, performed excellent. And in the end, Beterbiev just, according to the judges, his punches were just too effective. I mean, look at Bivol's face afterwards. He was blocking the punches of Beterbiev, and it was still beating his face up. So Bivol afterwards was basically saying, I got to do something different. And it was talking about the power. So it was a very high level, I wouldn't say game of chess, but if you are a hardcore boxing fan, that fight was fantastic. If you didn't know anything about boxing and watch that fight, I wouldn't say it was boring, but it was just kind of, oh, cool. But if you really knew what you were watching and knew, hey, Bivol can land a 2 or 3, 4 punch combination, but then he's got to get the hell out of there because this Russian bear is going to kill him if he doesn't. And a couple times Bivol didn't get out in time, and that's exactly what happened. And then later in the fight, Beterbiev, who's knocked everybody out that he's faced, basically started overwhelming Bivol. I thought he closed very strong, and it was a fantastic fight any way you look at it. And I'm getting, I believe I'll be calling the rematch February 22nd. And, I'm not one for predictions, but I think it's going to look exactly the same. And I think it's going to come down to the judges, and both guys are going to think they won when they start reading the cards.
That card in February, because I will say this, 2024, as we said, probably the best year we've had for a very, very long time in terms of being boxing fans. I don't know how 2025 can top it, but in terms of a card, it's already started off really well when it comes to February. Like you said, we've got the rematch with Bivol Beterbiev. We have Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker. Hamza Shiraz, who I'm sure you've called some of his fights as well, now fighting for a world title as well. On top of that, Shakur Stevenson is on the card as well, among others.
I love that fight, by the way. I love the Shakur Stevenson fight.
Okay.
But it's hard from top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say that in terms of now we're in an age of super cards, as they are calling it. Do you expect to see more of them in 2025 rather than what we could say traditionally we're used to, which is top bill fight card and then some lower level fights, which are interesting, but they're more interesting probably towards the local fan or a real hardcore fan?
Well, here's the thing. You keep having these mega cards, and then the next mega card gets set up. You know what I mean? If Zheli Zhang beats Ait Kabiel, then guess what? And Dubois beats Joseph Parker, and this guy, then you set up the next fight. That's what's so great about it, because they're right there to be had. There's no more of these promotional disputes. Normally your guy would win, and you're like, I'm not going to put him against this guy yet. Let's milk this a little bit and make some money. Now, man, Turki Al-Ashik's throwing you right back in the fire because of the money he's offering. So I think it's fantastic. So yes, this is top to bottom. I don't remember a card being as stacked as this one is, but I think a month or two later, or 3 or 4 months later, they can have one just as big, if not bigger, because all these guys on this card, if there's 10 fights, there's going to be 5 guys who win. You take those 5 guys, and then the next card, those 5 guys, you put them together. And I mean, you could really run with this thing. And the good thing is you lose a fight, it used to be detrimental to your career in boxing. With the O must go, you lose that O, and sometimes you're never heard from again. But now when, you're matching number 2 versus number 6 and number 3 versus number 9, and you're forcing these guys to take these fights, it's becoming more like the UFC, where hopefully the culture changes. You keep this up, 2, 3, 4 years, no matter what happens with Saudi Arabia, eventually fans are going to come to expect this. And, hey, you got to fight this next guy. And UFC, Dana White goes, you fight him. And that's why I think they've been successful. Now Turkey's pretty much saying, you fight him. And it's great for boxing, great for the fans.
Have you ever had a conversation with Turkey?
Briefly, he comes around and says hello to everybody, usually before and after fights. So, just pleasantries, nothing in depth.
Talking about 2025, I want to pick your brains about some of these fights. So the first one I'll probably talk about is Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. As a fight, who do you have as the favorite? And do you think we will get that in 2025?
As the favorite, I think you got to take the bigger guy, the more experienced guy, Chris Eubank, I think. If it came down to who wants it more and who's more determined, then Conor Benn. I mean, that guy, he almost froths at the mouth. He wants that fight so bad. But he has a number that he's going to stick to, and there's a lot of big fights out there for Conor. He's still at the beginning stages of his career, whereas Chris Eubank Jr. is winding down. So Conor Benn does not need Chris Eubank Jr. by any means, but that's the fight everybody wants to see, especially in England. And look, the average Joe on the street does not care about belts, does not care about records, they want to see, they like stories. They want to be enthralled. Conor Benn's dad hated and fought Chris Eubank Jr.'s dad. We remember that back in the day. Now the sons hate each other and they're going to fight. Yes, I want to watch it. And that's how you get the general public into boxing. We're giving them the other fights. you put a fight like that where people who wouldn't normally be watching boxing will be watching boxing, and then you give them these other great fights where maybe, hey, they fall in love with someone else or they want to see that guy fight again. That's how you build the sport. So that's a rare opportunity to get casuals, as we call them, to tune into a fight. So I hope it happens, but I don't blame Conor Benn for not taking that fight and chasing down a title, as Eddie Hearn has said he wants to do.
The big one, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. First question I'm going to ask you is, do you think this happens in the UK?
It should.
Okay.
It should. And Turkey Al Sheikh has done, he did the mega fight there with AJ and Dubois. He's done a show in the United States with Crawford and Madrimov out in Los Angeles. So he's done Riyadh season cards outside of Saudi Arabia. But of all the fights that could be made, that one has to be at Wembley, I think, or at Manchester, Manchester. It has to be an English fight. I mean, those are the two biggest names in recent English history, boxing history, and let's see what happens.
I would say this. I think we're at a point where both fighters' paths are now ready to be officially crossed together. I don't think there's anything really for Tyson Fury. I don't really think there's much for Anthony Joshua. I don't believe he needs to take a Dubois rematch. There is a Martin Bakoli call out. I have seen the video that's circulating on X.
Hey, nobody wants that guy. I don't care what they say. Nobody wants to fight Mark McCauley. He's my current favorite fighter, by the way. That guy is an absolute beast. I got to call his destruction of Jared Anderson in Los Angeles. It was just, he's the kind of guy you want to see fight. The guy that'll take punches in his belly and pound himself and come forward and just straight like a monster. And he's one of my favorite fighters. No one wants to fight that guy. No one wants to fight that guy.
I just think for these two guys right now, the line is there in 2025 where win, lose, or draw for either guys. If they fight and they want to retire, I think it's the best way to go for them.
Well, here's the thing. Let's just assume Tyson Fury fights Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury gets knocked out or gets beat by AJ. All of a sudden, we've gone from a year and a half ago saying Tyson Fury could beat Muhammad Ali. You've heard other people say it. Tyson Fury may be the greatest heavyweight of all time, right? We've gone from that to he got dropped by an MMA guy making his debut. He got beat by Alexander Usyk for the undisputed title. He got beat in the rematch. He fights Anthony Joshua and gets knocked out. All of a sudden, the legacy of Tyson Fury is not nearly what it was a year and a half ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if he avoids that fight. And, maybe he doesn't need the money. I mean, he's made, $200 million for his last two fights, roughly. He doesn't need that fight. Now, Fury may think I'm crazy and he doesn't think about that, but I could see that being an issue in the back of why haven't they fought yet, right? I think both of them are like, well, if this guy beats me, all of a sudden he's the king of the hill, the what do you guys call it? The toast of the tea or the
I don't know. You
know what I mean?
Yeah, yes.
You've gone from everyone saying you're the greatest to, oh man, you lost to Anthony Joshua, you lost to Usyk, and Ngannou dropped you. Get out of here. And then he retires on that note. That's a horrible note to retire on. But again, maybe I'm insane. Maybe Tyson goes, I'm going to beat this guy. I mean, and the same thing for AJ. If AJ gets knocked out by Tyson Fury, what's his legacy going to be? Outside of that amazing night against Klitschko, and after that, what is he known for? He's known for getting beat by Ruiz. He's known for getting destroyed by Dubois, and then he would be known for losing to Tyson Fury. Those would be the four things you remember him for, I would think. And he's had a great career. I'm just saying that these guys, a lot of these fighters, their egos come into play here, and it's not all about money. Fight AJ for whatever it is. Let's just say $100 million, or fight this other guy who I know I can beat for $60 million.
No, I do understand exactly what you mean, which is why I'm going to go to one more fighter, Canelo Alvarez. For me, and this is going to maybe sound controversial, when he was picking up all the titles at 168, you could put anybody else in front of me when it comes to boxing, but he was the face of boxing. I don't think there was anybody for me in the pound for pound list that was bigger than Canelo Alvarez. For me, he's the greatest boxer me personally I've watched. His 2025. A lot of people said his 2024 was a bit quiet. He just fought some fights, which is fine because of what he's accomplished, in my opinion. But in 2025, do you think we will get a fight with the winner out of David Benavidez and Morale? Or do you think we may get a Terence Crawford fight with Canelo Alvarez?
I think it all depends on, well, not all depends on, a lot of it depends on financials. You know,
Okay.
Canelo's at the point of his career where he wants a certain guaranteed number, at least that. So if you say, hey, let's bring in David Benavidez, we'll pay you, I'm making numbers up, we'll pay you $30 million to fight David Benavidez. Well, I'm not going to fight him. Who else can you fight? Well, you can fight Charlo for $15 million. Oh, well, you might take that fight. I don't think he wants to fight David Benavidez. It's not a good stylistic matchup for him. I think he'd be happy just staying at 168 and fighting contenders, you know, kind of like he did with Berlanga, a guy that he knows he can beat. I don't think he's chasing these big fights like he used to. You know, he's not chasing the biggest fight out there. If he was, we know who he'd be fighting. As far as him fighting Crawford, I think that might happen because at some point, Canelo's going to say, in his mind, this is an easy fight for me. I mean, if you watch Crawford versus Madrimov and you didn't know anything about anything and you watch that fight, would you have been like, wow, this Crawford guy is so good. I bet he could go up another weight class and beat another. You didn't think that. You thought he barely beat this guy. You know, he's right where he needs to be. So I think Crawford can make that fight competitive, but I think in the end, Canelo's going to see the numbers for that fight, the dollar signs. He says, what's in it for me? If I lose to this guy, it's terrible. If I beat him, they'll say you should have beat him. But don't they always say that for Canelo? Did they say that against Berlanga? You know, that's what we all thought for that fight. So I think that's much more likely to happen than Benavidez.
No. And the final one, and it's an all-American affair, and probably I'll say this, from me being from the opposite side of the pond, it's the one that I'm most excited about. Gervonta Davis versus Shakur Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to see that fight. Do you think we can get close to getting that fight in 2025, going into 2026? I don't know if we get it in 2025, but do you think we'll get close to it?
Maybe I'm insane, and maybe, I mean, most people would not agree with me. I'm not so sure that Shakur Stevenson beats Floyd Schofield February 22nd.
Wow.
This guy is a stud, man. He's dangerous, and he has sparred with Shakur Stevenson, and him and his father. I mean, from the day I met them, from the first fight I called where they were like, you know, a young prospect, you know, they were talking about fighting Shakur Stevenson. We're like, they have talked their way into it, and they're getting that fight. And I think it's going to be a good one. I might be completely wrong. He may be completely out of his league, but I'm excited to see what happens there. And if Shakur beats him, look, Shakur's last fight was boring, man. I mean, I know you love him. A lot of people love him, but when was the last time you're like, what a great fight from Shakur? I want to see something from this guy. I mean, remember his last fight? After the fight, he complained about people whining that he didn't knock the guy out. But do you remember during the fight when he would go back to his corner, he said, I got this. I'm going to get this. He kept doing that. And then people started leaving the arena. I want to see Shakur entertain me. I mean, do I want to see him fight Tank Davis and stick and move and run around and no, I don't want to see that. I want to see a guy that's going to go in there and go after Tank and make it an entertaining fight. So
this is where the fan in me will have to say my point about Shakur Stevenson. Again, somebody that I've grown up watching from the Olympics and when he became his professional debut as well. I will say this. I feel like he's in the point of his career where stylistically, he's just head and shoulders above a lot of the competition, in my opinion. Does he have that knockout power? No. But I do think it's the opponent that he needs to have to gear him up to that next level. And I think that's where Tank Davis comes into it. And I think once you get a Tank Davis, it's going to make for a very exciting spectacle. But I will still say this. I think Shakur will still box the way Shakur Stevenson will box. And the onus will be on Tank Davis to be able to land his shots to get that knockout finish.
See, I know you like that fight. And I love the fact that you said spectacle. It'll be a good spectacle. The fight will be boring. Bro, Tank Davis, I know this sounds stupid. Outside of the knockout moments, his fights are boring. He doesn't do anything. He loses rounds, he waits, and then bam, it's over, which is great. Congratulations. Shakur Stevenson's fights are boring. You think he's going to get in there and let Tank hit him? It's going to be stay away from this guy, win on points, and hopefully Tank doesn't catch him. I'd rather see Tank versus Ryan Garcia part 2. I know he's probably too big now, but I want to see a guy that challenges Tank and throws big punches and might knock him out. Those are the fights I want to see.
No, that's why I said spectacle. You caught me because you got me on the word spectacle.
You're not gonna say it's going to be a fight. Here's the way I look at a good. I'm a little more basic. To me, if I invite a friend over who's not a boxing fan, and I go, you got to see this fight. You'll become a boxing fan if you watch this fight. Would you do that for Tank versus Shakur? Bro, round 7, they'd be like, get me out of here. You know what I mean? I think. I understand what you mean. I do get that. I just, because the boxing in me will be like, you don't understand what we've still got to go. You don't understand what we got here to get this fight. But I do understand what you mean. Which is why you caught me when I said spectacle. It's the same thing with Floyd Mayweather. I love that Floyd Mayweather was an amazing defensive wizard and can fight the way he fought. But compared to the first half of his career, you know, when he was Pretty Boy Floyd knocking guys out in exciting fight, that's the Floyd I loved. You can't blame him for the way he fought later. But if you're to tell me, man, would you bring people over for a Floyd Mayweather fight? The Floyd Mayweather fight versus Canelo, I had a huge party at my house in Connecticut. I rented a big giant screen in the backyard, a projector, had 40 people come over. Canelo versus Floyd. And everyone there was like leaving before the fight was over because it was so boring. But that's, if you want to build boxing, you want these mega fights, I think you got to put 2 guys in there that are going to go after each other. Not to say that I don't respect Shakur and love the way he can do what he does, but I'm the Gotti Ward guy.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I do understand exactly what you mean. And that's why, like, when Floyd and Manny Pacquiao was made, I remember being in university and I said, it's going to be a great spectacle. Mm-hmm. I didn't ever say it was going to be a great fight just for that particular reason. Yeah. I know we're a bit stuck for time, so I just want to ask you one more question. I'm sitting here talking to you. You've called some of the greatest fights in boxing history. You've worked in some of the greatest companies. If there's someone watching this that wants to be in your position, what advice would you give them?
Well, you got to start small and you got to start local. I was American football, but when I was like 16 years old, I found a little nickel and dime radio station near my house in Georgia, and I started calling little high school football games on the weekend for free. And then they'd let me come into the studio and I got to play commercials, and I made like $5 an hour. And then I started hosting the football shows. And then I started calling baseball games during the fall. And then I got to a TV station. So you got to start small and you got to put the work in, you got to get good. And you're not good when you think you're good. You're good when other people think you're good. I remember when I was like on my first TV job was in Ottumwa, Iowa. I was like the weekend sports guy. So I'd report on the big games of the weekend. And I remember doing shows thinking, man, I was so good. That was so great. And I go back and watch him now and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So, but right now you've got so many different ways to grow your brand and to get good. I mean, when I'll be 49 later this week. So I'm almost 50 years old. So when I started out, we didn't have internet. We didn't have podcasts. We didn't have this kind of stuff you were doing. So there's so many avenues to become a professional, So when I grew up, it was different. But I think that the fundamentals are the same. Repetition. The more practice, the more reps you can get doing anything. Don't just think, oh, man, I want to be a football announcer, so I can only call football. No. Call track and field. Call cricket. Call any rugby. Call anything you can get. Basically, you're just describing you're describing scenes. You're telling a story. So no matter what it is, just start doing it and do it as many times as you can. And the more you do it, pretty much the better you'll get, like most things in life.
Perfect. Like I said, we're hitting the 30-minute mark. I want to say thank you so much for your time, Todd. I know you're always a busy person as well. We would always love to have you on the show as much as we can do. And whenever your schedule is available, maybe when you're out in one of them Saudi Arabia events, so we could get you in there possibly as well.
That'd be fun.
Live from there.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thank you again for your time, guys. As always, like, share, subscribe. Until next time, Happy New Year to you all. Peace.
It's another band. All the Muslim cars now, whichever get up. Light up my card with a sweet one bliss. Someone flips me a bag by it. So, it's another one, yeah, it's a full strand, yeah.